Facebook has removed a disinformation network of anti-vaccination campaigners in recent weeks. Twitter has overhauled its labeling of misleading tweets about COVID-19 and vaccines, and Google has updated COVID-19 vaccination searches in all 27 countries in the EU. These examples can be found in the November and December reports from online platforms Google, Facebook, Microsoft, TikTok, and Twitter, presented on Thursday. The online platforms are signatories to the Code of Conduct to Combat Disinformation and regularly report on measures taken against false and misleading information related to COVID-19. The efforts of the signatories to support vaccination campaigns in the EU are crucial as the spread of the Omicron is a major challenge, said Vera Jourova, Vice President for Values and Transparency. And she said, but there's still room for improvement. The next round will follow in March. By then, signatories should have delivered the new strengthened code, which I expect will address existing weaknesses, and that includes by strict treatment of all languages. And Thierry Breton, European Commissioner for the Internal Market, said about this, I thank the platforms for their engagement in this regular monitoring to fight the COVID-19 disinformation. As we now move towards the final phase of the adoption of the Digital Services Act, I expect them to step up their work and swiftly adopt a strong code of practice consistent with our new European Digital Handbook. I personally must say I still read a lot of nonsense there. And TikTok reported that the number of videos tagged with a vaccine flag on its channels in Europe tripled from 90,000 in October to 266,000 in December. Google has updated searches for COVID-19 vaccinations in all 27 EU countries, starting with information on child vaccination. Facebook has taken down a disinformation and bullying network targeting medical professionals, journalists and elected officials, run by a conspiratorial anti-vaccination movement. Microsoft allowed some government vaccine ads as part of its updated policies, which generated approximately 733,000 impressions in the EU between November and December. Twitter reported updates to the labeling of misleading tweets related to COVID-19 and to vaccines to make them easier to spot. Discussions on a strengthened code of conduct are ongoing. The new code, which is based on the guidelines published in June, should be presented by the end of March. And North Korea has reportedly launched another missile test. South Korea said so. It's supposed to be a medium-range missile. So, once again, North Korea has tested another missile. The South Korean military said North Korea fired a medium-range ballistic missile at steep angle at the sea east of the Korean peninsula on Sunday. The missile reached a maximum altitude of 2,000 kilometers and covered about 800 kilometers in half an hour. According to experts, it was probably a medium-range missile that has a significantly longer range with a less steep trajectory. North Korea last tested such a missile in 2017, wrote expert Joseph Dempsey from the International Institute for Strategic Studies on Twitter. At that time, North Korea had tested a Hwasong-12 rocket that traveled 787 kilometers and reached an altitude of 2,111 kilometers. At the time, experts had assumed a maximum range of 4,500 kilometers, which would make an attack on the US territory of Guam in the Western Pacific possible. Japan's government spokesman Hirokazu Matsuno said the missile launched on Sunday was a medium or long-range ballistic missile. Sunday's missile test was the 7th this year. The last time North Korea tested so many weapons was in 2019 after negotiations between ruler Kim Jong-un and then US President Donald Trump when those broke down. Since then, talks with the US have stalled completely. North Korea last tested missiles and cruise missiles on Tuesday and Thursday. According to the state news agency KCNA, long-range cruise missiles were fired at a target island 1,800 kilometers away during the test on Tuesday. At the start on Thursday, 2 tactical guided missiles hit a target island. And since the beginning of January, North Korea has conducted at least 4 other weapons tests, including hypersonic missiles. By definition, hypersonic missiles travel 5 times faster than sound and are difficult to intercept. Should Donald Trump run for the presidency in the USA again, he has already promised an official act if he is elected. It is about the storming of the Capitol with more than 700 participants. Former President Donald Trump promised pardons to those involved in the storming of the US Capitol a year ago if he was re-elected. These are currently treated so unfairly, said Trump at a performance in the state of Texas in front of thousands of supporters. If he runs again in the 2024 presidential elections and wins, he will work for fair treatment, he said. And if pardons are needed, we will give them pardons because they are being treated so unfairly, he said on Saturday night. By the end of December, US Justice had arrested more than 700 people for involvement in the storming of the Capitol. Hundreds have already been charged with various crimes. Some people accused of violence against the security forces, among other things, have already been sentenced to several years in prison. Numerous investigations by the federal police FBI and proceedings by the judiciary are still ongoing. After an inciting speech by Republican Trump, his supporters stormed the seat of Congress in the capital, Washington, on January 6th last year. They wanted to prevent the confirmation of Democrat Joe Biden's victory. The attack killed 5 people and injured dozens. The attack on the heart of US democracy shook the country and surprised the whole planet. In addition to the judiciary, an investigative committee of the House of Representatives is also trying to investigate the attack. Trump described the panel's work as a disgrace when he appeared in Texas. The Republican continues to refuse to concede his defeat in the November 2020 election. The 75-year-old has not yet officially announced that he wants to run for re-election in 2024, but he keeps hinting at it. So far, there's no promising Republican candidate in sight should Trump try again for the candidacy. In China, there's resistance to the corona regime. Hundreds of millions of Chinese traditionally travel to their families for the New Year celebrations. This year, they are being asked to stay at home for the 3rd time, but not everyone will comply. Almost more than the increasing, albeit limited, corona outbreaks in China, the real problem for millions of people is the strict travel restrictions and curfews. They are often issued overnight and are valid for weeks. Hundreds of millions usually travel to their home villages for the most important family festival in China. It is often described as the largest annual migration of peoples in the world. Because Omicron has also arrived in China, the authorities are urging people to stay where they are on this New Year's festival, and they say it's a precaution. Nevertheless, more Chinese will set off than a year ago. The Department of Transport expects 1.18 billion trips in the 5-week season surrounding the holiday, a 35% increase from last year, but still well below the 3 billion seen in 2019 before the pandemic. According to the lunar calendar, the year of the tiger begins on the night of February 1st. I was born in a year of the tiger, by the way. It is the 3rd of the 12 signs of the zodiac. This year, the element of water is added to Chinese astrology. The courageous tiger stands for energy, zest for action, and change. It should be able to drive away evil, soothsayers believe, but can he also drive away the virus? People longed for everyday life and normal travel. They expect a peaceful, restful year and even predict an economic boom. However, the rigorous virus prevention measures in China are also depressing growth. In January, there were temporary curfews for up to 20 million people in the 3 major cities. Factories had to close. Supply chains have been disrupted. Flights have been cancelled, despite only a few dozen infections being reported daily. The zero-COVID policy is putting massive pressure on local officials. They are the first to get fired when there is an outbreak. And there is increasing popular resistance to overly exaggerated measures. There was outrage when County Councillor Dong Hong of Dangcheng in the Henan province announced that he would quarantine and then arrest any malicious returnees who come from high or medium risk areas. Even the state media went too far. Or for the state media, it went too far. It was only human to want to return to home for the New Year's celebrations, they say. But the daily newspaper China Daily agreed with him on the matter. He just chose the wrong words, they say. With curfews, mass testing, forced quarantine and contact tracing, China has the virus under control better than other countries. Life has largely returned to normal. But first Delta and now Omicron put the zero-tolerance policy to the test. In Beijing, where the Winter Olympics will begin in early February, infections are being counted again despite all the precautionary measures. Cold chains with imported goods are suspected to be the cause, but experts consider this unlikely. And like the Summer Games in Tokyo, the Winter Games are overshadowed by the pandemic. For fear that the virus could be imported, the participants can only move in hermetically sealed bubbles and have almost no contact with the country and its people. I saw videos of that. It's a little bit like space travel. Corona is also dampening the Olympic spirit of the approximately 20 million Beijingers. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.